And then another picture. This is Curtis Street in Ephesus. And, well, let me just back up there. You can see there's pillars on both sides. Now, if you can imagine full, tall pillars on both sides and a roof, that's what the city really had. What we're seeing are just the remnants of it. And then Heracles Gate. Heracles was the son of Zeus, a mythological figure, and this did not exist in this location at the time of John, but it was actually moved here in the 4th century. And Heracles is the Greek name. The Roman name is Hercules. You may recognize that name. They brought this gate here, and it did originally have an arch over it, but the arch has not been restored, and they set the gate up here to eliminate vehicles from going down the streets of Ephesus. Now, obviously, they did not have motorcycles or cars or trucks, but they did have chariots and something similar to a stagecoach, those kinds of things. Here's the Trajan fountain. Trajan, of course, was one of the Roman emperors. And here's Trajan and Nero's altar. And we know that it was their altar because you can't see it in the picture, but when we were there, we could actually walk right up to it. And in Greek, it says Trajan and Nero right on the altar. And this altar, no doubt, was an altar that was used to offer sacrifices on. And here we have a storefront. It's built right into the side of the hill, and there is a number of storefronts all together, but here's a picture primarily of one storefront. And then right in front of that, you can see that it's actually roped off so that you can't walk on it, because what you actually see here is the original mosaics that make up the sidewalk. And these mosaics, there's tens of thousands of tiny little pieces that are put together to make the most beautiful pictures that you can imagine. And just think a whole street of these. It's just almost breathtaking to look at. Here's the Hadrian Temple in Ephesus. Hadrian, of course, was a Roman emperor just after the book of Revelation was written. And then, for those of you who have to go, this is a latrine. And latrines have a special function in the city of Ephesus because they had bathhouses and they had latrines. And this is where the gossip was done. And interestingly, it was done mostly by the men. We often think of women gossiping in our society, as the women kind of get a bad rap that way. But this is where the men would go, and they would read the morning newspaper, so to speak. And they would sit around and do their business and talk. And actually, the toilets drop down. What is deposited there drops down into almost what's a sewer. And the sewer is fed by springs that are higher up. And so water comes down into the city. It is channeled through the latrines. And it's then taken out to something that would be similar to a septic field today. And then there's the library. Libraries are very important. Here were the books kept. And just to the right of the library, you can see, and the next slide will show you better, you will see what's called the agora, the marketplace. So there's the library, and right next door is the marketplace. And what would happen is that husband and wife would go into town, the wife would go into the marketplace, and the men would go into the library. And of course, some of the men actually studied They read up on things. There were lots of books there. But what the archaeologists have actually uncovered is that from the library, there was a secret tunnel that led to the brothel. So while the women were shopping, the men said, "I'm going to go to the library, dear." But then they ended up at the brothel. Here's a better picture of the library and even some of the intricate work at the top of the library. And there's the agora, the marketplace. In the city of Ephesus, the pagans worshipped Artemis or Diana. This was a goddess that was so very, very important to them. And here is a part of the sidewalk. And this is over 2,000, well, almost 2,000 years old. And you can see that there's a foot. And this is part of the sidewalk that comes from the harbor up to the city of Ephesus. There's a footprint, and just off to the right of the footprint is a woman, and just to the top and almost exactly in the center of the screen is a heart. And what this was showing is that well, it went like this. The sailors would come in, they've been out at sea. The sailors would come into the city, and in the sidewalk, it would show them the direction to the brothel. There's a woman, you'll find love, and you go this way. And that was so important to them that they actually put it into the sidewalk. Well, here's the great theater where there was almost a riot. They still do concerts here. They do concerts to actually raise money so that they can restore the theater and the rest of Ephesus. This is a picture of the theater in the background and the sidewalk that goes out to the harbor. Another picture of it. The harbor at the time that John wrote was very close. It was at the end of the sidewalk. But then today, the harbor actually, because of sediment and other things, is 6 miles away. But at one time, it was very close. Now, just outside the city, and for the longest time, no one could find the Temple of Diana. But just outside the city, in the late 1800s, the archaeologists found the Temple of Diana. And today, we see that it's basically a swamp, and the archaeologists have put back together one column. So you see one lone column in this place that used to house this magnificent temple. You can see this column a little better in this picture, and right at the top is a stork. A stork has built a nest up there and is taking care of her young. And you can still see the stork a little bit from the distance. But right here was this beautiful temple, and it looked like this. Now, what kind of temple was this? Well, it had more than 100 pillars that were 60 feet tall, and it had this magnificent structure and roof, and it was larger than a football field, if you can imagine such a thing. And in fact, it was made of marble that was yellow and white and red and blue, and this marble was probably taken from Patmos because that's where a lot of the marble came from. And what do you suppose they used for grout when they put the marble together? Gold, solid gold. So this is a magnificent structure. It was built about 500 years before the time of Christ,